Earlier this year, I began the 88th Armory with the idea of adding some variety to my, and maybe some viewers' arsenals by looking at weapon and Warframe builds that can work for the mid-game, where we play a lot of Warframe's experience and see what might make it into or close to the endgame. What I found in doing this was that I want to put everything on the table. Warframe is a game most often played in the mid-tier of its difficulty. This means facing enemies that are somewhere from 25 to 45 in level, give or take 5 levels. But what I found in attempting to point out in some of these weapons and builds that I enjoy in my mid-game play was that there are tons more to be had than even I thought. What we're looking for here is more variety, more fun in our Warframe experience. I still want to focus on more weapons, builds, and combinations for the mid-tier of the game where we often have a lot of our play, but I want to put all options on the table to find these elements of enjoyment through diversity, which is a lot of what Warframe has to offer. I'm Scott from Ramble Entertainment, and this is the new version of Season 1 of the 88th Armory. Let's find our fun, let's find our variety. And welcome back to another episode of the 88th Armory, Season 1. This is episode, 13? Wow, we're trucking now. So, today I want to continue to revitalize explosives, and as the title says, I want to do so by demonstrating that Thunderbolt and concealed explosives can scale. Now first I want to do the regular thing. I want to look at a bit of footage, and what better way to do so than on the new Fortress tile set in a survival with Rhino. Now, one thing that is definitely worth noting when handling either set of explosives, you still want to have a more survivable frame, a frame that can take self-inflicted hits, because your Hikou, your throwing weapons, Spira, your Attica, your Zooge, even if you choose to put these on both, which I still wouldn't even recommend, just go for the Attica or the Zooge, but either way, you're still going to want to have these frames with survivability. You won't need a Panzer Nix like I showed last week, which will still be in the end footage. Will it? Yes, no, it won't. Okay, there's the link. Bam! So Panzer Nix is basically a build where you use Assimilate, and Nix can walk around with either the Penta or the Ogress or even the New Core and won't take any damage. And there are other frames that are capable of accessing explosives through different techniques, and I'm going to continue to cover them throughout this season. But what we want to talk about here today are the kind of lower tier explosives, the ones that are easier to write off first, because they've been believed up till this point to not scale, and they still only scale to a minor extent. However, they do scale, and it was believed that, or it is believed, and it's true, that Serration, Heavy Caliber, and a lot of your damage mods do not scale these abilities, these weapons, these mods. But I tried to, I checked the wiki, I checked at least the first page of Google, I checked, I did some thorough looking. I wouldn't say I went and did my research like others will, because that's kind of insulting to what researchers actually do, but I did some thorough looking. I took more than an hour or two to actually see if I could find anyone else who had noticed this, but there are particular mods that, yes, can scale the explosives. So, with that in mind, let's go ahead and take a look at what those mods are. So again, my goal here at the 88th, our goal, is really not to slay big bads, so I'm going to select some butchers here. I'm going to crank them up to about 40, which is around the mid-level of the game, and we're going to test or prove this to ourselves that the Primed Bane mods and the Expel X-Faction mods do allow this weapon to scale, as we can see here at rank 8 Primed Bane of Grenier, and you'll see that in a second, scales the explosion up to 251 damage per explosion, and I'm trying mostly to aim for the floor to do this damage. And really, this was a surprise to me, because Warframe's been around for a few years, so, you know, usually somebody typically stumbles upon this stuff, but I feel like I'm at least the first one to, at the very least, put it in a video. So here I take off the Prime Bane of Grenier, and we're going to see a damage drop. We're going to go up against the Butchers again, because we're not looking to slay the big bads with this explosive Attica. What we're looking for is to play some typical missions, not go into the highest level of the mission difficulty, just looking to add some variety to our arsenal. Attica is a weapon that I think a lot of people have, or still have, that is likely collecting dust because it was kind of replaced by the Zooge. If you like or don't like them, either way, the Zooge has better stats. Now, admittedly, I do have a Ribbon mod for this Attica. What the Ribbon mod is adding to the Attica is improved reload speed and punch through. Both are great in adding to this. It does also have 200% damage. I'll look at the builds when we get to the builds, but I want to at least put that out there as we show again that the Prime Bane of Grenier is scaling this, as I forgot to spawn the enemies. I will look at the build, and it is worth mentioning that you're still going to be shooting right at the enemies. You really shouldn't be shooting it for the floor, because you are wasting potential damage with this build. But, yeah, the Ribbon mod adds 200% damage, which does affect those shots that do hit the enemies. Still, this really isn't about that. It's not about the damage that is focused on particular enemies as much as it is area damage, because explosions are fun. So let's get back to using more explosions in our game, and let's go ahead and also take a look at the Hekou Prime, since we're here in our testing chamber. So again, we have our Butchers ready. Again, we're not aiming for the big bads with this, we're just looking to have some fun. So the Butchers are kind of this lowest rung to see if any of this will be effective at rank, what was that, did I amp it up to 40? Yeah, they're 40. So again, we see with the Expel Grenier mod, or we will see that with the Expel Grenier mod, that this amps up the damage for even the Hekou explosions. Now, of course, this isn't going to amp it up anywhere near as much as the primed variation, because I think with the Expel mods, you're only getting 30%, whereas at max rank, the primed Bane mods get up to either 50 or 55% more damage. So, either way, very cool that there's still these little things that can be discovered in Warframe to add variety to our arsenal and to continue to improve our arsenal. And do I think that the Prime Bane mods are worth this? Well, do you like explosions? Do you like a variety? Yeah, I like both, so yes, to me it's worth it to at least get them to rank 8, and maybe eventually rank 10 to have that bit of additional fun. But even here you can see the explosions are doing 173 damage, and earlier they were doing 225, which is pretty significant when you're laying down a 10-meter area of effect. So, a lot of fun. Let's go ahead and get into our builds. So, with some mobile defense footage playing in the background, what we see here is, of course, our Attica build that we just saw in the test video, and of course highlighting the Prime Bane of Grenier mod. We'll take a look at the Ribbon mod here shortly, but I will take a more in-depth look at a standard Attica build with that next week. I really don't want to be covering the same weapon in the same week. I don't know, it just kind of seems dull. So, the 2 different builds, 2 different weeks, seems a nice way to approach things. Let me know otherwise if you would prefer to just immediately see that and see the different styles of it. Obviously, we're seeing an explosive style here, which obviously isn't very high-end. The other style hits as hard as Excalibur's Exalted Blade, which I'm loving! Anyway, so we have the punch through, we have the minus status duration, both of which, for me, aren't really required. I think the punch through does help with the explosive build, And then, of course, the reload speed helps across the board, and then the damage will help across the board too, but we're not really aiming for single target damage here on our Attica. We're aiming for the multiple target damage, which is why we have the Prime Bane of Grenier. And then again, since your explosions don't scale, all we really need to focus on is the split chamber for more shots, Vial Acceleration for more speed, because the damage that we're really doing isn't what matters. What matters is the explosions that come from Thunderbolt, because Thunderbolt deals its own individual damage. Let's see if we can get that mod to highlight. So there it is, 30% chance to explode, which means we're not really going to get as many effective explosions as we do with the Hikou. But really, again, we're just focused on maximizing Thunderbolt with this build to, again, return to some fun with our mid-game. So, with all of that in mind, let's also take a look at the Hikou, or Hikou, or Haiku, or however you want to pronounce it. I believe I looked up a Japanese pronunciation on Google the one time, and I believe it's Hikou, which means sky, but who cares? Anyway, we're playing Warframe. So again, we're focused on the explosions. I think you get a lot more out of the Hikou with your explosions. However, even with Rhino and a maximized iron skin, I'll show you my Rhino build here shortly, I think you really... The Hikou do a lot more damage to yourself, a lot more self-damage, because they have a higher chance of explosion, and obviously you're throwing a lot more shots, so I think you do a lot more explosive damage with the Hikou. But obviously, and we'll show even more footage of just the Attica here at the end, but obviously I'm being effective with these weapons in the mid-game. 34 level enemies, 40 level enemies. Let's go ahead and look at this build. So let's go back to that concealed explosives. Come on, you can do it. No! 80% chance to explode. I see it, but I want to see it better than that. No. It's moving so fast, I should have highlighted it better. Anyway, 80% chance to explode, which is obviously a lot higher than the 30% chance to explode. So, focusing on the Hikou for the throwing speed, for the amount with which you can throw. Now, it is worth noting that I think you run out a lot faster on the Hikou with ammo than you do with the Attica. So I would say you probably could tank Anemic Agility for probably something else to do with ammo. We have a lot of ammo preservation already on here. Quick draw, so probably the mod that extends the maximum size of the ammo pool would be the proper choice to get rid of Anemic Agility with, because Lethal Torrent is already obviously adding attack speed. However, you are getting a lot more explosions in a given moment. I really was thinking about cutting in some sounds of an AC-130 with its explosive Gatling gun going, but I don't know. We won't be showing Attica footage at the very end, so maybe if there's eventually an primed Expel Grenier, primed Expel Infested, primed Expel Corpus, maybe we'll come back and we'll edit that fun stuff in, but the end footage is just going to be the Attica, because I think it is a bit less consequential at the moment compared to the Hikou, which I'm not sure. They might also have a larger area explosion. Let's go ahead and see how we are on our time for our background video. I think we have the time to look these up. So let's do this on the fly like we've been doing. And of course it pulls up on the wrong screen. So you're a bastard. And let's see here. So the area of effect on this should be 10 meters. There it is. And then with the Thunderbolt, what is the area of effect? I think it's a bit smaller. 10 meters. I was wrong. Anyway, still, 30% versus 80%. The Hikou, if you really want to go for some pocket explosions, are the way to go. That sounds weird. Don't do pocket explosions in school, kids. Anyway, so let's go ahead and also take a look at our Rhino build. Now, why is the Rhino build key to this? How does Rhino add to this? Obviously, he makes the explosions better. This is what I call a selfish Rhino build, where you're really not aiming to share your... why can't I think of the name? Of course I can't think of the name. Roar. You can't share... You won't be sharing your roar with anyone on this style of build, or if you try to, you really need to be right up against them with Limbo's agility stance equipped. And, yeah, it's purely selfish, really just focuses on adding to the damage and maintaining a very strong iron skin. And yeah, so let's go ahead and get into the final footage with that Attica explosive footage. Now, I do want to be clear that I'm not saying that no one else has discovered this before me, that the explosive mods can scale or have potential to scale. I just, you know, there's probably someone who found it and told a few of their friends or their clanmates, and that was about the extent of it, and then no videos were made, no forum posts to find, or even if there are forum posts or Reddit posts, you know, they're kind of buried. They don't populate well with Google search results, and I'm sure part of that is because there does seem to be this prevailing mentality of go for what's best, go for what's strongest, and obviously we're trying to buck against that. We're looking for what's fun, we're looking for our variety, and really that's what this style is about. One, we found a way to scale these explosive mods to make them even more viable within this mid-game that we play a lot of, and furthermore, we're doing this for fun. You know, obviously we're not going to be taking an explosive Attica into a sortie anytime soon, although with that Riven mod, I'm taking this bitch into the sorties when I'm not playing it explosively. Anyway, as we've been doing, let's go ahead and kind of watch this build in action as it kills me. One thing worth noting before we actually just get to the strict gameplay footage. You can refresh your iron skin with these kinds of weapons. So like Neja, you can refresh his halo. You can refresh Rhino's iron skin with this by basically, if there's no one around that's really threatening you, shoot the ground and then put your iron skin back on. Kind of a neat little nuance to this, and I think you'll even see that coming up here where I'm just like, oh, nice, yeah, and I'm like, I'm selfish, yeah. Anyway, so let's go ahead and watch the footage, watch the explosive Attica in action.
Prepare for life support. Another life support capsule is now available.
So there's obviously some neat little potential here with the Attica, with the Heco, to kind of return to these explosive builds, especially with powerful Rhino and Nezha shielding, and even if you want to take it with Nyx or Trinity, or we'll look at another Warframe that has this potential this week, and another Warframe with such potentials next week as well to handle explosives. Basically these select frames that kind of do these specific things. Vauban is another great example that we've already looked at, this hallway hero who basically can control a funnel for enemies to come through, and then keep enemies far enough away so that he can lay explosives on them with the Ogress while using the Zenistar with his Vortex. Very interesting stuff. There's a link if you want to see it. Anyway, so the negatives are pretty obvious to this build. You're gonna blow yourself up, you're not doing that much area of effect damage, but there is still this potential to kind of influence the mid-game with these weapons, where you can DPS down these lower tier mobs, and then of course you can always bring a more powerful secondary, a more powerful primary, whichever one you're carrying these pocket explosives on, and then if you have a large mob, like a napalm, then you can of course just switch to that weapon real fast, shoot them down, and either go back to your explosives or stay on that weapon for a while. Really, it's more about the fun of the game than it is about the effect on these super powerful mobs going to the Simulacrum, spawning a level 100, spawning a level 120, spawning a level 150, 200 enemy, and testing things against that, because there are only so many things that work against those, but we're not constantly playing against those. So let's play with what's fun, and I think that this Attica is very fun. I think the Heco is very fun, and if there are primed expel mods, I do look forward to using those. If not, I still look forward to using the Heco with a bunch of different primes, a bunch of different frames. Wow, a bunch of different frames. Anyways, so let's get out of here. Let's go ahead and get another Riven mod ready for tomorrow. We're actually going to look at a weapon specifically influenced by a Riven mod, as opposed to this kind of, these are explosives, and here's a Riven mod that kind of affects it. No, rather we're going to look at how this Riven mod applies directly to this weapon. So stay tuned for that tomorrow or the day after. I meant to get this video up the day after my Trinity Sobek build, but that didn't happen. Things take time, and my time is becoming more and more split these days. But I'm still gonna get you guys videos. So if you like what we had to do here, do the thing, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Oh, and happy Tenno-Bomb.